So hello and welcome to the video, and welcome to Mauritius. I had intended to make a dedicated video about my time in Mauritius, but as I only saw a small corner of the island in the couple of days I was there, it would be a stretch to claim to be an authority on the whole country. So let me share a mini report of my time there before sharing my flight back to the UK in much more detail. I stayed in Flick-and-Flack, a resort on the western coast of the island. I selected it as it promised a resort feel with some bars and restaurants and other things to do. A lot of internationally branded resorts can be found around the island, but they tend to offer so much on-site that people never leave the properties. That's not conducive to local bars and restaurants prospering on their doorsteps. I stayed at the Enquiries Hotel and Spa, which was pretty good. For about £90 a night, I got a very comfortable room with all that you'd need, including a nice sized bed, a desk and also a balcony. The view was magnificent, if you tune out the fore and middle grounds of the vista. There was a pool, not the most lavish I've ever enjoyed, but very refreshing with lots of shade. And I spent my time there drifting between the beach and the pool, just relaxing. Oh, and I recorded 2 videos when I was there too. The YouTuber grind never ends, even in paradise. And there were indeed some nightlife options. I wouldn't say they were abundant, but they kept me fed, watered and entertained. This was also the remotest place I've ever been recognised. Say hi in the comments if that was you. Mauritius was delightful, although it wasn't entirely what I expected. The island is very unusual in that it was never colonised. It was uninhabited when the Portuguese first landed in 1507. The French took control in 1715, but they ceded it to the British in 1810 on the condition that French laws and the French language are preserved, something which Britain seems to do extremely well all the way through until Mauritius gained independence in 1968. Today, French is still the first language, although almost everyone also speaks good English. The food is French and excellent. The service is French and wasn't always excellent. I didn't expect a Commonwealth country that had been in the sphere of British influence for over 200 years to be quite so French. Slavery played a large part in Mauritius's history, and following its abolition, large numbers of Indian workers were brought into the country to work, which means that the majority of the Mauritian populace today is of Indian heritage. So it's a British Commonwealth country, part of the African continent, where most people are of Indian heritage who speak French. As I said, it's really not what I expected, but it was really, really lovely, and I am keen to go back. But that YouTube grind meant that all too soon it was time to head back to the airport for my flight back to London. So over to me to introduce the next part of the video. So hello, welcome to Mauritius Airport. Now I've been here for about 48 hours now, just long enough for me to relax into Mauritian island time and start to actually enjoy myself, which of course means it's time for me to now leave. And this is the last flight of this trip, and I'll be flying on Air Mauritius all the way from here back up to London Gatwick. Now Air Mauritius, you may hear me say, I'm never going to fly on them. Why would I want to watch this video? Well, I sort of thought the same, but they are a redemption partner of Air Canada's Aeroplan scheme. So when I was looking for a route home from South Africa, a route through Mauritius popped up. It's very attractively priced. I'm in business class. It's an A350-900 with all aisle access, and it looks like it should be quite a good flight. 12 to 13 hours, and Air Mauritius promises a lot. And if you'd like to see whether they deliver against those promises, stick around.
Hi, I'm Matt, and this is Matt's Planet. I aim to entertain, educate and inspire with my travel adventures, from planning to execution. I'll show you how you can travel in style for a lot less than you'd think. So subscribe so you can come with me. So into the attractive terminal. This was January, so I enjoyed every last second of warmth, as there'd be the opposite waiting for me at the other end of my journey. The airport was quite busy with a number of wide-body flights departing later in the day. It was strangely noisy too. Around to the Air Mauritius check-in desks, and there was literally a red carpet welcome for their premium cabin travellers.
I had to wait a few minutes for my turn to come, but once it did, it was a smooth and speedy check-in process, and I was quickly off to the fast-track passport and security checks. Another occasion where having a priority lane didn't afford a huge advantage, as the regular passport lane looked quite manageable, and indeed the regular security lane may have been quicker. But I was through quickly enough. Mauritius is a prime holiday destination, and processing people efficiently in and out helps build the reputation of the country as a good place to visit. Through the duty-free shop, of course, not brilliant value from what I saw, and then off to the lounge. Air Mauritius uses, no shocks here, the Air Mauritius Lounge, as do a lot of other airlines and potentially a lot of people with lounge access memberships. It's not used by BA though, I note. There's an upstairs and a downstairs. Most of the downstairs area was roped off when I arrived, so upstairs was clearly the place to be. And upstairs was a lot less claustrophobic with the higher ceilings, and it was actually quite busy up there. It's a sizable space, which you'd perhaps expect given the number of passengers who have the right of access, but it is still an attractive space. There's a central manned bar and a buffet area behind it, which I'll show in a moment. Lots of different seating spaces, and I saw some empty seats towards the rear, which I headed for to make camp. I ended up right next to the kids' play area, but there weren't too many kids in the lounge that evening, and those that were there were very well behaved. The buffet was decent, nothing exceptional was on offer, but there was a good range of hot and cold options. A slight bulk catering feel to it, but that's probably because it is bulk catering. I was keen to save my appetite for the plane, but did manage to graze on some tasty stuff while I waited. The bar was a little underwhelming, and as it was manned, service was a little slow, and being manned I couldn't easily film it. A few flights had boarded, so the occupancy had thinned out a little when I decided to head off, but I took a moment to check out the lower lounge, which was now fully open. Indeed, it was now busier than the upstairs facility. It's got an attractive design, including this bridge focal point, although the low ceilings did make it feel a little claustrophobic. There's a very similar buffet down here, perhaps a little smaller if anything, although there are drinks available down here on free pour. So all in all, it's a nice lounge with little to choose between the upstairs and downstairs manifestations. And I decided to head off to take another look around the terminal. I stay away from politics on this channel, but I was interested to see that one of Air Mauritius's A330s is named after the Chagos archipelago. Our plane was at the next gate, a 7-year-old A350-900 that's been with Air Mauritius since delivery. I also found another Air Mauritius lounge right up the other end of the terminal, although it was closed. I've no idea if it's available earlier in the day. Boarding was a bit chaotic, and it was a bit delayed too, largely it seemed because an arriving flight had pulled into the next gate along, and we couldn't begin boarding until that plane's passengers had all disembarked. The gate area was quite small, so there really wasn't anywhere else to stand though. It was all good-natured, and eventually boarding began. I always like to get on first to film as much as I can before everybody else gets on, so I added to the throng at the gate. Otherwise I'd have found a seat some distance away and allowed everything to settle down a bit before getting on myself. Down the jet bridge, and there's a slightly better look at the plane. On, and it was a left turn into the 7-row business cabin. My plan of getting on first clearly didn't work. I'm quite quick at blurring faces these days though. It's a 1-2-1 layout with all aisle access, with straight ahead seats, each of which is offset from the ones in front and behind. Regular viewers will not be surprised to learn I'd gone for seat 2A that evening. A pre-departure champagne was swiftly in my hand, or on my side unit at least. Cheers! A good-sized screen is in front of you, beneath which is the okay-sized foot cubby. My feet are smaller when my shoes come off. These are Stelia Solsits 3 seats, also flown by Turkish and Air France, and unusually the tray table drops down from in front of you. No chance of leaving the seat with the table deployed here. And you can't really see from this, but you move the seat forward to meet the table rather than it being the other way round. A USB port is in front of you and a power socket is beside you along with a headphone jack. That's a storage area over your shoulder containing the headphones, and it's quite deep so stuff won't fly out in turbulence. There is a remote for the IFE and a reading light. The seat controls are under the side table along with a smaller storage unit under the armrest. That's the amenity kit. I really like these storage areas as they give you somewhere to put glasses and hearing aids when you sleep. There's space for a water bottle, and you'll notice a literature slot in front of you too. On your left is an armrest and not a lot else except for a decent gap to the fuselage. And overhead are lights but no air vents, which is a little unusual for a plane based in a tropical climate. Let's crack open the amenity kit before we take off and lose the lighting that we do have. Not bad actually, eye mask and socks, a few potions including a huge tube of toothpaste and a pen. Not bad at all actually. And let's look at the menu too. Always a challenge to do this one-handed, so here it is scanned. Pause the video for a closer look. This is a straight ahead seat, but 3-point safety belts were installed. I still don't understand when you need these and when you don't, but I suppose in this seat you could just about hit the TV screen in the event of an unplanned deceleration, and they're only required for takeoff and landing. The IFE screen was of a good quality, a nice responsive touchscreen and a sharp picture. Only 12 movies categorised as new releases though, and 15 categorised as action, with quite a lot of overlap between those categories too. There were well over 100 movies in total though, so most people will find something to entertain them. The safety video was of the cartoon/serious genre, and we pushed back about 30 minutes late. Bye bye Mauritius. I've had a good run of being on the correct side of the plane to catch these moments on this trip. And up into the darkness. It's a shame to fly in or out at night as it's such a beautiful country. Here's a clip from my arrival to give a better idea of what the island actually looks like, although I think we did fly overhead the capital city, so there was something to see as we climbed. Before the service started I had a bit of a play with the seat. You can move forward and back whilst still upright, and you can go a long way forwards. I've still got my legs straight here, which gives you an idea of the depth of that foot cubby. It was quite an unusual feature, but I suppose it's handy if you have terrible eyesight and want to get a lot closer to the screen. A hot towel started service. It actually looked like a towel for once too, not a threadbare rag. And whilst the lights were still on, I thought I'd try out the flatbed. Not the most elegant of footage, and I don't know quite what happened here, but you do indeed go flat. The foot cubby is okay, it's a little snug perhaps when you're flat, and the seat wasn't quite long enough for all 6 feet 4 inches of me. I will report on how well I slept later, and shorter people will get on with it a lot better than I did. Pretty good privacy though, no door to the seat, and this was a row where my seat was closer to the window, but I couldn't see anyone else when I was flat. We took off just before 11 PM, but unlike some other airlines, Air Mauritius doesn't seem motivated to abbreviate the service, so first up was a drinks round, a gin and tonic for me. A half point lost as the brand of gin was not disclosed, a half point regained as that's a healthy serving of nuts. Cheers, note the drowned olive. Not the best gin in the world, which is probably the reason why they didn't share what it was. Perhaps I spoke too soon, and perhaps Air Mauritius is motivated to speed up service, as the starter, salad and cheese courses were all then delivered on one tray, along with a side serving of turbulence. Really nice French butter, plus crackers at the top there for the cheese, concealing a sachet of dressing for the salad. The crab salad starter was delicious, which is handy, as there was no choice of starter. And the tray was accompanied by a glass of red wine. You had two choices, French or French. I went for the French. Did I mention earlier that Mauritius is still quite French? Cheers for a third time. It was really quite agreeable. You can see that the service came from a trolley, which I really don't mind. It seems a whole lot more efficient to serve that way rather than hand carrying items one by one from the galley. 3 choices of main. I went for the chicken, and let's say it tasted a lot better than it looked. A good sized serving too. No dessert for me, but I did enjoy the cheese. The French influence is clear again, accompanied by the now traditional bucket of cognac, except when flying on BA, of course, as they don't offer it. And once everything was served, it was lights off, even if you hadn't quite finished. Good job I filmed the seat in bed mode earlier. That was my finished cheese plate and the tablecloth. So all that was left to do was go to bed. Now there's an 8-hour gap between that and my next clip, and I reckon I slept for 7 of them. My level of poopedness at the end of a long day and a decent dinner proved stronger than the limitations of the bed, and I actually slept quite well. I woke as breakfast was served and went for the toast and smoked salmon option. All the promised components were there, but the mix of them was very heavily weighted towards the bread, it has to be said, with a cup of tea quite literally on the side. I breakfasted adequately, I wouldn't be any more generous than that, and as the lights were back on I was able to get a better look at the cabin. Those middle seats are similarly offset, but there's an obvious pair that couples should plump for. And it was still dark as we descended into London Gatwick, so the 3-point seatbelt needed to go back on, plus some more wintry clothes in anticipation of what the weather would be like. This was mid-January. We were in the air for 3 minutes short of 12 hours, and it was dark outside for every minute of that flight. So Air Mauritius. I really enjoyed this flight. It's a great example of a flight where no single element was outstanding, but nothing was terrible, such that overall it was a really pleasant experience. The seat is very good and is probably the best part of the experience. It's a wee bit too short for me to be able to rate it as excellent, but you might, particularly as the comfort, privacy and storage were all very good. The food and drink was good, but none of it was excellent, certainly not that breakfast. But then again, it didn't aspire to be excellent, so it's hard to describe it as having been disappointing. And the crew were great, but nothing much about them really stood out, and like most crews these days, they took refuge in the galley for as much of the flight as they could. I'd happily fly Air Mauritius again, not least because I'd be in Mauritius when I landed. Having said that, you may think Air Mauritius is only an option if flying to their home country, but they do offer connections to South Africa and to Perth in Australia, plus perhaps Kuala Lumpur or even India. So maybe there are more occasions to fly them than you might think. Air Mauritius doesn't seem to pay Gatwick a huge premium to get a good gate, so he pulled into gate 30-something, which is about as far as it's possible to get from passport control at Gatwick's South Terminal. So as I hike to the exit, up and over the crazy bridge they've built, how much did this flight cost me? This was the continuation of a flight I'd taken from Cape Town, purchased using Air Canada Aeroplan points and taking full advantage of the ability to force a stopover mid-trip for a cost of only 5,000 extra points. So the full one-way journey cost me 85,000 aero points plus £138 in taxes. I'd purchased my points during a never-since-repeated 125% bonus promotion, so they cost me 0.92p each. So allocating the total cost between the flights based on miles flown means that this flight cost me 636 quid, which for a 12-hour flight is exceptional. And you can do this too. You may not stumble upon the same 125% purchase bonus that I did, so your price per point may be a little higher, although 100% purchase bonuses do come along from time to time through Air Canada. And if you get the chance, I'd recommend Air Mauritius. They're not Qatar or Singapore Airways, but they're not trying to be. They're trying to be Air Mauritius, and they are very, very good at it. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give the video a like if you did, and leave me a comment. Would you fly this airline? Please subscribe if you're new, and if you'd like to support what I'm doing more directly, there is a Patreon account, the link to which is below. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.